If you bought a house and still feel constantly stressed about money, I want you to know this conversation is for you. I'm Alex, and today I want to talk honestly about something many homeowners quietly feel but rarely admit out loud. You did what everyone told you was right. You worked hard, you saved, you bought a home, yet something feels wrong. Instead of feeling secure, you feel tense every month, watching your bank account drop faster than it ever did before. You have a house now, but somehow you have less freedom, less margin, and less peace than you expected. E2. If that sounds familiar, please know you are not bad with money, and you are definitely not alone. Before we go deeper, take a second to like this video if you have ever felt this quiet financial anxiety. Share this video with someone you care about who recently bought a home or is thinking about buying one. And if you want more calm, honest conversations about money without hype or false promises, consider subscribing here. I make these videos to help people understand money clearly, not to shame them for decisions they made trying to do better. Today I want to explain why buying a house can actually make you feel poorer, even when it looks successful on paper. This is not about blaming homeowners or saying buying a house is always wrong in every situation. This is about understanding what changed, why so many people feel trapped, and why this feeling is getting worse recently. Many homeowners tell me they feel embarrassed complaining, because owning a home is supposed to mean stability. Society tells us that once you buy a house, financial stress should fade away, not intensify like this. But the truth is, for many people, the moment they bought a house was when the pressure truly started. Suddenly, every unexpected bill feels heavier, every repair feels frightening, and every month feels dangerously tight. You start budgeting harder than ever, yet somehow your money feels smaller, not more powerful or secure. That confusing, uncomfortable gap between expectation and reality is exactly what we are unpacking together today. Because once you understand why this happens, you can stop blaming yourself and start making clearer decisions. Keikiui. Buying a home is sold as the ultimate symbol of safety, success, and adulthood in American financial culture. We grow up hearing that renting wastes money while owning builds wealth, equity, and long-term security financial. So when you finally get the keys, you expect relief, pride, and a sense of arrival in life. Instead, many people feel a strange panic settle in, almost immediately, once the excitement wears off completely unexpectedly. That panic usually starts quietly, with small worries about bills, repairs, and whether something might break tomorrow unexpectedly. I have talked to homeowners who can afford their mortgage, yet feel broke every single month afterward emotionally. On paper, they look fine, even successful, but their daily reality feels tight and exhausting, financially, emotionally draining. This is the gap nobody prepared us for. The emotional cost of owning an expensive home today quietly. And this gap is wider now than it was for previous generations of homeowners before, financially speaking, overall. I want to be clear here. This is not because people today are careless or irresponsible financially minded. Doini. What changed is the environment around housing, income, and debt, not the intelligence of buyers themselves today overall. In the past few years, housing prices rose much faster than incomes for most American workers nationwide overall. At the same time, mortgage interest rates climbed sharply, increasing monthly payments without increasing the home itself value. That combination quietly stretched household budgets thinner and thinner, even for people doing everything right financially already disciplined. Many buyers accepted larger loans because renting felt like failure, not because the numbers truly made sense long term. I understand that pressure deeply, because our culture celebrates ownership while quietly shaming those who wait patiently financially. But choosing ownership under pressure often leads to a life where money stress never actually leaves your mind. This is where the feeling of being house poor slowly begins to take shape, emotionally, financially over time. You earn money, but it flows straight into fixed costs, leaving little room to breathe comfortably each month. And once that breathing room disappears, stress replaces the security you thought homeownership would provide you long term. Dharmer. The moment housing consumes most of your income, your entire financial life quietly shifts into constant survival mode. You stop thinking about growth, opportunity, and flexibility. and start focusing only on getting through each month alive. Every paycheck already feels spent before it even reaches your bank account, leaving nothing left over for emergencies or peace. Property taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, and unexpected repairs stack up on top of the mortgage payment quickly monthly. What once looked manageable during closing slowly becomes overwhelming once all the real costs appear together each month unexpectedly. Many homeowners later admit they underestimated these extra costs because nobody explained them clearly up front during the buying process. Lenders focus on what you qualify for on paper, not what lets you sleep peacefully at night consistently. Just because you are approved for a large loan does not mean it fits your real life comfortably. Approval calculations ignore stress, emergencies, health problems, family needs, and the emotional side of money entirely that people live with. Once housing costs cross a certain threshold, financial stress becomes a constant background noise in life every single day. You might still pay every bill on time, yet feel one unexpected expense away from disaster at all times. That constant vulnerability reshapes how you think, plan, and experience even ordinary moments daily in ways you never expected. You hesitate before spending money, even on small joys that once felt harmless and easy without any fear. Social plans slowly turn into mental calculations, weighing costs against anxiety and future uncertainty instead of enjoyment or connection. Home repairs stop feeling routine and start feeling threatening because they destabilize already fragile finances without much warning. A broken appliance or car repair suddenly feels like a crisis rather than a manageable inconvenience you planned for. This constant financial tension quietly drains energy, confidence, and hope from people over time without them noticing immediately. Over months and years, that stress spills into relationships, health, sleep, and overall emotional well-being in deeply personal ways. The house meant to protect you slowly becomes the main source of pressure shaping daily choices and long-term decisions. That is when many homeowners finally admit they feel poorer now than before buying, despite doing everything right. This feeling confuses people because owning a home is supposed to represent progress, security, and moving forward financially. Instead of relief, many homeowners feel pressure tighten as responsibilities multiply and financial margin quietly disappears over time. I often hear people say they thought buying a house would finally make their money stress go away. But the stress does not disappear. It simply changes shape and becomes harder to escape over time quietly. Before buying, stress came from rent increases or moving, but after buying, stress becomes constant and personal daily. When something breaks, there is no landlord to call, only you and your bank account to handle it. That responsibility feels empowering at first, but quickly turns heavy when money is already stretched thin everywhere daily. Many homeowners start delaying maintenance, hoping problems stay small, because fixing them immediately feels impossible financially right now. Delayed repairs usually grow more expensive, increasing anxiety and reinforcing the feeling that you are trapped in place. This is how a house slowly shifts from being a home into becoming a financial pressure machine daily. And the hardest part is that this happens quietly, without a dramatic failure moment for most people everywhere. You are still functioning, still paying bills, still showing up, while feeling increasingly exhausted inside financially and emotionally. From the outside, it looks like success, which makes admitting the struggle feel even more isolating than expected. People assume owning a home means you are doing well, so you keep doubts to yourself quietly inside. I believe this silence is one of the most damaging parts of the house poor experience for homeowners. Because when people suffer quietly, they assume the problem is personal failure, not a broken system around housing. That belief keeps people stuck longer, blaming themselves instead of questioning the financial rules they followed their whole lives. I want you to hear this clearly. Feeling broke after buying a house does not mean you failed. It means the expectations sold to you did not match the reality you are living through right now. And understanding that difference is the first step toward regaining control over your financial life and choices again. I want to pause here because many homeowners secretly wonder if something is wrong with them personally. They ask themselves why everyone else seems fine owning a home while they feel anxious and stretched every month. I felt that same question pressing in my mind when I first started hearing these stories repeatedly. Over time, I realized the issue was not discipline, intelligence, or effort, but structural pressure built into housing. Housing today demands a much larger share of income than it did for most families just a generation ago. Yet incomes did not rise at the same pace, creating a gap that quietly squeezes household budgets everywhere. According to recent housing data, median home prices rose far faster than wages over the past decade. That gap forces buyers to stretch further, take larger loans, and accept financial discomfort as normal living. What worries me most is how normalized this discomfort has become in everyday financial conversations today. People are told that stress is temporary and worth it because homeownership always pays off eventually. But living under constant financial pressure changes people long before any payoff arrives decades later. It changes how safe they feel, how confident they feel, and how much control they believe they have. When stress becomes permanent, it stops motivating and starts slowly wearing people down mentally and emotionally. That erosion is invisible on spreadsheets but deeply real in daily life experiences for homeowners everywhere. I believe this is why so many homeowners feel confused, exhausted, and quietly ashamed despite outward success. They did exactly what society encouraged, yet their internal experience does not match the promised reward. That mismatch creates cognitive dissonance, making people doubt their judgment instead of questioning the system. And when people blame themselves, they are less likely to make changes that could actually help them. This is why understanding the real source of this pressure matters so much before making any decisions. Once you see the problem clearly, you can start responding thoughtfully instead of reacting from fear. One of the biggest myths in personal finance is that owning a home automatically builds wealth over time. I want to challenge that belief carefully, because while homes can appreciate, the lived experience often tells another story. Wealth is not just about net worth on paper, it is about flexibility, options, and peace of mind. When most of your money is locked inside a house, those other forms of wealth quietly disappear completely. This is where equity becomes misunderstood, because it feels valuable but cannot help you in daily life situations. You cannot easily spend equity on groceries, medical bills, or emergencies without creating more debt along the way. Yet many homeowners emotionally count that equity as safety, even while their cash reserves shrink rapidly over time. That disconnect between perceived security and real vulnerability is where deep financial anxiety begins for many people today. I have seen people with impressive net worths panic because they lack liquid money during emergencies and unexpected moments. Liquidity sounds boring, but it determines whether problems feel manageable or catastrophic in real-life situations for households. When you buy too much house, you trade liquidity for the illusion of long-term stability early on. That trade often looks smart in spreadsheets, but feels brutally different when real life intervenes unexpectedly for families. A single job loss, health issue, or repair can expose how fragile the situation truly is financially today. This is why many homeowners feel constantly on edge, even though they technically own valuable property today outright. Owning something valuable does not help if it removes your ability to adapt and respond quickly financially safely. Financial resilience comes from having room to maneuver, not from maximizing purchases to the limit every month alone. This distinction is rarely emphasized when people are encouraged to buy the biggest house possible financially today. Instead, the message focuses on approval amounts, ignoring how those numbers translate into lived stress daily for families. I think this is where many well-intentioned people unknowingly make decisions that harm them financially long-term. Understanding this difference between ownership and resilience changes how you evaluate every major financial decision going forward confidently. When people hear the word equity, they imagine progress, safety, and future wealth slowly building underneath them. But equity does not reduce anxiety when your checking account balance keeps hovering uncomfortably close to zero. I have spoken with homeowners who technically own six-figure equity but panic over a $1,000 repair. That contrast reveals something important about money that most advice completely fails to explain clearly. Wealth you cannot access during stress is emotionally useless in the moments you need it most. Gakt. This is why people feel confused, because their financial situation looks strong externally, but feels fragile internally. The house becomes a symbol of success publicly, while privately becoming a source of constant internal pressure. You begin protecting the house at all costs, even if it slowly erodes your quality of life. Vacations disappear first, then hobbies, then small comforts that once made life feel balanced and enjoyable. Over time, life quietly shrinks around the mortgage payment without you consciously choosing that outcome. Years. This is rarely discussed because shrinking lifestyles do not show up in net worth charts or statistics. But people feel it deeply when days become repetitive cycles of work, bills, and financial worry. I believe this is where resentment quietly grows, not toward the house, but toward yourself. You start wondering if you made a terrible mistake that cannot be undone for decades. That thought alone can feel paralyzing, especially when everyone around you congratulates your homeownership milestone. From the outside, your life looks stable, which makes admitting internal struggle feel shameful and lonely. Many homeowners suffer in silence because they believe they should feel grateful, not stressed. But gratitude does not erase financial reality, and pretending otherwise only deepens emotional strain over time. This internal conflict drains mental energy that could otherwise be used for growth and creativity. And without realizing it, the house starts dictating your emotional state more than you ever expected. At this stage, many homeowners realize the house did not just change finances, it quietly changed how life feels daily. Decisions that once felt simple now feel heavy, because every choice is filtered through financial consequences constantly. You think twice before resting, spending, or saying no at work because the mortgage demands reliability above everything. This is how financial pressure slowly reshapes behavior, priorities, and identity without announcing itself clearly up front. People start defining success as survival rather than growth because stability feels fragile and easily threatened. Poverty. I believe this shift is one of the most damaging but least discussed effects of being house poor. When survival becomes the goal, creativity, ambition, and long-term planning quietly move to the background. You stop asking what kind of life you want and start asking what you can afford this month. Over time, this mindset can make even financially responsible people feel stuck, discouraged, and smaller than before. The tragedy is that this often happens to people who followed every responsible rule they were taught. They saved, planned, worked hard, and trusted that buying a home would secure their future emotionally. Instead, many find themselves more anxious, less flexible, and more dependent on steady income than ever. That dependence makes taking risks feel reckless, even when those risks could improve long-term outcomes significantly. Career changes, education, or breaks suddenly feel impossible because the mortgage requires constant, predictable cash flow. This is how a house can quietly limit opportunity without appearing to do anything wrong externally. Charter. On paper, everything looks stable, but emotionally, people feel boxed into a narrow version of life. I want to pause here because if this feels familiar, your reaction is completely understandable and human. Feeling constrained does not mean you lack discipline, gratitude, or maturity as a homeowner today. It means the financial structure around housing has grown heavier than many people can comfortably carry. And acknowledging that truth is not weakness, it is the beginning of regaining perspective and control. At some point, many homeowners quietly ask themselves whether this constant pressure is simply how adulthood is supposed to feel. They wonder if everyone else is just handling it better, or if something is uniquely wrong with them. I want to be very clear here. This level of stress is not a requirement for financial responsibility or maturity. Normalizing constant anxiety around money is one of the most harmful beliefs modern finance culture has created. Financial stability should feel boring and predictable, not tense, fragile, and exhausting every single month. When your finances never feel boring, it usually means you are operating too close to the edge. This is where many homeowners realize they are not failing. They are simply overextended in one direction. Overextension does not mean disaster is inevitable, but it does mean adjustments are necessary to regain balance. The problem is that many people feel trapped because selling or changing course feels emotionally impossible. Homes carry identity, pride, and years of effort, making purely financial decisions feel deeply personal. I respect that complexity because money decisions are never just math. They are tied to identity and fear. Still, ignoring reality rarely reduces pressure. It usually compounds stress quietly over time instead. The good news is that feeling house poor does not mean you have no options or choices left. It means you need to shift from endurance mode into intentional problem-solving mode gradually. That shift starts by honestly naming the situation instead of minimizing or rationalizing ongoing discomfort. Once you acknowledge the strain, you can begin evaluating changes without panic or self-judgment clouding decisions. This is the moment where clarity becomes more powerful than optimism or denial ever could be. From here, the conversation moves from why this happened to what you can realistically do next. Not everything needs to change immediately, but something usually needs to change eventually. And the goal of any change should be restoring breathing room, not chasing perfection or appearances. If you already own a home and feel overwhelmed, the first step is accepting reality without shame or self-blame. A decision that no longer fits your life does not define your intelligence, character, or long-term worth. Sometimes the bravest financial move is not holding on, but creating space to breathe again. That might mean downsizing, renting temporarily, refinancing, or finding ways to reduce the pressure gradually. None of those choices mean failure. They mean prioritizing stability over appearances and expectations. If you have not bought a home yet, I hope this video gives you permission to slow down and question assumptions. The most expensive house you qualify for is rarely the house that gives you the best life. A good home supports your health, relationships, and choices, instead of silently demanding sacrifice everywhere else. Financial success is not about checking boxes. It is about building a life that feels sustainable and calm. Owning a house should add stability, not constant anxiety that follows you into every decision. Darau. I believe real wealth is having options, flexibility, and the ability to respond when life changes unexpectedly. A house that removes those things may look successful, but quietly limits your freedom over time. If this video resonated with you, know that you are not alone in feeling this way. Many people are quietly questioning the same assumptions about money, housing, and what success truly means. Conversations like this matter because they replace shame with clarity and isolation with understanding. Data Syntain. If you want more honest discussions about money that respect your reality, consider subscribing to this channel. Share this video with someone who feels pressured to buy or struggling quietly after buying. Leave a comment telling me which part of this conversation reflected your experience most clearly. Your story matters, and it helps others realize they are not broken or alone in this situation. Thank you for spending this time with me, and remember, financial peace is built through awareness, not pressure.